The Podcast Super Friends. 5 podcast pros talking tech, promotion, marketing, ideas, and strategy.
It's 2026. It's a brand new year. The Podcast Super Friends, we're still here. I'm Matt Kundle from the Sound Off Media Company in Saint Adele, Quebec, and these are the friends. We'll go clockwise.
Hello, I'm Johnny coming to you from Fort Worth. Excited to be here. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, everyone. My name is Catherine O'Brien in Baton Rouge, Louisiana.
And a wicked happy new year from Dave in Boston, pod617.com, the Boston Podcast Network.
John Gay, Jag in Detroit podcast. Like Matt, I have also moved, except I only moved a couple towns over outside Detroit. Matt moved across an entire country.
And you'll notice that Boston accents always seem to flare up a little more when the Patriots are doing well. Or the Red
did
Sox.
well.
Yeah. It's 2026, and this is where the podcast predictions come out. We could do a podcast predictions show. I find podcast predictions to be weird. I did a few of them for the Pod News Weekly Review. I did about 4 of them. They'll actually creep up a little bit today. But they're tough to do. It used to be like 2016, 2017. I know, Catherine, we would, make a few predictions and we could sort of see it coming and
Right.
when other people would. But today things are accelerated so much that, saying AI is going to play a factor in podcasting is not exactly a
Hot take.
hot take. Exactly. So what I did was I went and grabbed a few from a few different places. There's sort of an amalgamation of a few, and some people we can probably directly credit. And by the way, if you are watching us live, feel free to comment, and we'll post your comments down below. So I'll just reach for one, and I guess we'll get started here. I'll start with this one here. The tug of war between walled gardens and open platforms is going to continue forever. Some of the big players are going to open their walled gardens so slightly, so creators who are seeking more autonomy. This actually came from Sharon Taylor from Omni, and I've always loved Sharon because she's so insightful. Tug of war going forever. I don't know that there's going to be a dispute of that, but the question here is, will some of those big players open the door for creators?
Could you expand on that a little more? What
I was
exactly
gonna
does
say-
that mean?
Yeah. So Spotify going to play ball a little bit more? Is YouTube going to do more for the podcast community? Is Apple going to be reaching out to podcasters a little bit more and offering us a little something?
I'm gonna buy on that one. Oh, Catherine has her thumb down. So, well ladies,
But
first.
we'll get to that.
All right. So I'm gonna buy on this because, like all things in media, follow the money. And the reason I say that is, yes, you're going to have all these big, giant production studios and big, giant media companies with more, amalgamation of all these coming together and corporate mergers. But they're always going to be chasing the next big thing, the next big moneymaker, the next big podcast that came out of nowhere that might have been 3 friends sitting around a table, like My Dad Wrote a Porno, for example. These small ones that come out of nowhere and do gangbusters and are a revenue generator. You can only get so much blood from the stone, so to speak. So I think there's going to be opportunities for independent creators, but it just becomes on those independent creators more so. You better have something that's going to knock somebody's socks off.
And when you say opportunities, do you mean like a Spotify deal?
A Spotify deal, a syndication deal, something for OTT for smart TVs. I know we'll get to that part of it later probably too, but I think these big companies would be penny wise and pound foolish to not have that potential revenue stream in independent creators.
Well, Jag, I think that I'm saying thumbs down to this because I actually don't think that we're going to see some of these big deals or that we had that run. We had that era with podcasting. And I think that podcasters who have that lightning in a bottle, that gem that's going to pop and go totally blow the roof off of everybody's podcast players, I think that they're going to be taking those things inside. I think necessity drives a lot of these decisions, and I just don't see that that's going to be happening this year. There is not going to be that necessity to have the garden walls or to continue the metaphor, to those things to be opened. I think that the creators are going to be having their own setup of sponsorships and monetization and those things, and that the big companies aren't going to have to open those doors at all.
I kind of agree with Catherine, and I think of like the Joe Rogan thing that we saw with him going to Spotify exclusive for, 1 year, 2 years. And then before you know it, he makes the announcement, oh, by the way, we're going to be kind of trickling back to YouTube. We're going to be going back onto Apple Podcasts. I think that it's so hard for any one established player, whether it's Spotify, Apple, or YouTube, to have sole control over one show when they creator themselves has so much more opportunity for monetization by being on those other platforms. By just you're expanding, you're kind of the money has to be good enough to go, I'm going to cut off whatever potential revenue I could get from YouTube and Apple to go just to Spotify. They have to pay me enough to where that makes it worth it, and I'm not locked in forever, so that I can go back and recapture that audience. And again, you have to take into consideration the fact that you're now going 2-3 years without any exposure on YouTube or Apple. And so now you're essentially rebuilding that from scratch once you get out of that deal.
Yeah, I was going to say it's dangerous to be that reliant on one provider. Sorry, David, go ahead.
No, that's okay. I don't know who's gonna win the race, if there is one, to be the podcast host, to end all host, and to offer something special and different to the rank and file podcaster. The Joe Rogan's going to do his thing and all that, but I think this could be a year where we see some innovation in monetization models. YouTubers know exactly what they need to do and how many hits they need to get in order to start monetizing their show, and then they do start to make money. I don't think this exists for podcasts, but I don't think anyone's won the race to that. You put your podcast on YouTube, of course, and you can follow those. But it'll be interesting to see if Spotify or Apple Podcasts, or maybe some strange third party, comes up with a model that is user friendly for the average podcaster to try to monetize their show.
I'll say again, I think Substack is going to continue to be that place, because it gives you the newsletter, it gives you the blog, it gives you the site, it gives you the video, it gives you the podcast.
And to tag on to what Catherine said, I think there's kind of a middle ground or a third route that someone could take, which is similar to Substack, is a Patreon style movement. And it's really relevant. Yesterday, I saw just popped up in my newsfeed a podcast that I had started listening to in like 2018. His latest YouTube video was titled "The End." And who's not going to click on that if you're familiar with the podcast? And, I went through his YouTube channel, few thousand subs, barely cracking 1,000 views per YouTube video, and he'd been doing this for like 8 years. But he has a big following, just not on YouTube. And the whole shtick of the way to get you to click was thinking he was shutting down the podcast, and the announcement was in a sense, he was just no longer going to be releasing the podcast publicly. And the reason he said so was it's really hard to get sponsorships now. For his show is what he called a variety show, which is why I always hit on niche. He said a general variety show is really hard to market, really hard to get to grow listenership that way. And so he said, we have, 500 paying subscribers on Patreon who are paying for the ad-free version. We are going to exclusively just post our episodes there. And we're not going to be doing any more public episodes because we're not getting sponsored. We're not going to be seeking sponsorships anymore. It's just not worth the time and the effort that we put into it.
So we're going to blow this one off the board now, because you all just talked about it. This is from Norma Jean Belenke, who has a show called Podbiz. But she mentioned this one. In fact, she continues on the next sentence that I don't have room for on the screen. She says, we're seeing it with Apple Podcast subscriptions, integrations. We're seeing it with Substack. I don't think anyone. Yeah.
I mean,
exactly what you were saying.
For those in the audio version, do you want to clarify what you're talking about here, Matt?
Say again. Oh, we're going to see a lot more creators push towards subscriptions. We've seen so many leaders in podcasting come on Podbiz to talk about this. And then she goes on to say, we're seeing it with Apple Podcasts and we're seeing it with Substack.
Yeah. I mean, it's exactly what we said earlier, Matt. And it's exactly what I've talked about this for years on this show, which is there's only so many things that a consumer can take in a day. And we have so many things that we pay for: Netflix, Hulu, Disney, all of these things that we pay for. I'm much more willing to pay to my favorite podcast $3-4 a month for ad-free content and be part of a community. If you can really just pull people in, like Matt, you talk about this all the time with collecting emails and getting direct access to who your audience is and interacting with them one-on-one outside of social media, this is the best way to do it. And you don't have to go hunting for sponsorships. You're getting a few dollars per subscriber, and you get to do the thing that you love, which is your podcast.
I'm dragging my feet on the subscription thing. I have been for a while. I've been very anti-podcast subscription, and I think to Johnny's point, when you're already paying for Netflix and Hulu and Disney and everything else, to me, it's a much higher barrier to good content. If you are going to ask somebody for even $2.50 a month, your content had better be damn good. I mean, some people talk about podcasting get a little too democratized because anybody can have a podcast. Right. If we're looking at subscriptions, you have a much higher bar to get somebody to pay you to listen to your content than if you're just putting the content out and trying and promoting it on social and short video clips and getting people to listen to it. I think it's a very high bar to get somebody to pay money, even a couple bucks, to subscribe to your show.
And that's a real testament. You have to have an audience. You have to have a base that you can sell this to. I would never suggest, and some podcasts do not lend themselves to that model, period. That's never going to work for them. But for the person who's able to have that, they have the audience, they have the number of people who are raving fans who will be able to do I'm going to say $5. I've never heard it below $5 as the low point. I think that's, you have to have the audience and you have to have some sort of proof that is going to be the go. I know that previously on the podcast Super Friends, I did a case study of a show that I follow that basically they've been going at it for 5 years. They built up enough of the subscribers to where they weaned off of the free. They still have a free feed, but they also, the main content is to the paid subscribers. But that was over the course of 5 years and building that audience.
And Jack, let me make another argument to try and pull you over to our side. Podcast subscriptions are
I'm looking over the cliff
best.
a little bit here, John.
So from what I've seen on a lot of these Patreon podcasts is there's tiered subscriptions. So pretty much the base level is the $5 one. You're getting the episode without ads. And then there's the added value within more tiers. You pay more, you get more. You pay $15 a month, you get the ad, or you get the episode 3 days early. Everybody loves to be ahead of the curve. I want that dopamine hit of my favorite podcast faster and faster and faster. And then there's so many different things you can do with it, which is, think of like one of these garden variety shows. You get to suggest a topic that will make it into the episode, Q&A, be a guest, blah, 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 all the way on and on and on down the line. And there are people that will love your contents. And again, this all is built around the idea that your podcast is actually good. And you can go on and on and on with you can get really creative with it. And I think I would like to see people pivot more to that kind of thinking and just get creative to what they can do for the audience rather than trying to chase down sponsorships, because there's just too many podcasts and not enough money to go around from the corporate dollars to hit everybody.
All right. Shall we move on?
Sure.
This is from Hannah Southern. We're going to see creators actively reworking underperforming YouTube channels. We're going to see them changing formats, making shows feel native to the platform, and in the process, reaching a totally new audience. Podcasters are going to up their game on YouTube. What say you?
Catherine's going to thumb up.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's totally true. I think that podcasters have seen, we got sold the message that YouTube wasn't important. That wasn't podcasting. And I think that is not true. I think that podcasters are going to have to be very serious about their video and especially particularly YouTube. And YouTube is about podcasting now. They have put out guides for podcasters. They are telling podcasters what they want to see from them. So yeah, I think that's absolutely true. I think to ignore that is folly. And I think that, yes, I understand we all came into podcasting, especially us, particularly right here in this Super Friends. We came into podcasting when it was audio only. That was then. We might all lean into audio as being our favorite part of podcasting, but we are adjusting for reality.
And AI plays a role here. It makes it a lot easier to do video intros, video outros, video like little segments. In the past, I tried to jazz up my video podcast as much as I could by creating some animation at the beginning, but I'm not an animator. So I would go on Canva and or Descript and do the best that I can. Now I take a photo of the hosts, and let's say they're doing a little segment on their favorite songs or something. I tell, AI or Grok or whatever you use to create a short video where these two are transformed into musicians, and then have a big headline that comes up and says, Dan and Frank's top 5 songs or whatever. And it takes me a minute, and it looks good. We might be tiring a little bit of AI content, but for those little blips, you put something in, and for an opening of a show, it's a professional looking opening to a show where you used to have to either pay or spend a lot of hours creating that.
Hey, David, you mentioned top 5, but isn't it more classic to have like a top 10 of music?
Oh, yeah. Well, I do have a music show.
Past 10's a top 10 time machine.
TimeMachinePod.com. Thank you, Catherine.
I thought we saved that till like the end. We did it within the first 20 minutes.
Hey,
I'm keeping everybody on their toes, Johnny. I'm being unpredictable. I've got hooks planted throughout this entire podcast stream here.
She doesn't want to be a podcast that turns boring and predictable.
Yeah.
Well, people might be wondering, they hear that prediction, they go, okay, well, people say I'm going to re-jazz up my channel. I'm going to change things for a more native format. That sounds like really just kind of high level, really just sort of, I don't know exactly what that means. What are some tactical things that I can do? Here's a few things that you can actually do starting today with your channel. Fix all your thumbnails. Get a coherent theme going with your thumbnails. Go back to your first episode that you released on YouTube. That thumbnail probably stinks. You can change that. If you look within YouTube, they have A/B titling options. Play with the different ways that you structure your titles so that they're better optimized for discoverability, for search, however you want to describe it. When we release the podcast on the clients that I work with, the way that we title for Apple and Spotify is very different than the way that we title for YouTube. For YouTube, what you're shown on YouTube when you're actually on the platform is the first 60 characters. So you don't want those first 60 characters to be episode 12, Johnny Peterson, founder of XYZ. And then you want this to be professional podcast producer tells all. That's
your
the
name
first
is Johnny
thing.
Podcasts.
It's the government paperwork is very slow. But it's I one of the things that I need to redact on that I've said before is when we were encouraging people to get onto YouTube and kind of make this pivot into video podcasting was you don't need to have the best camera, you don't need to have yada 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 all the lighting. This is part of what the prediction is if you want to jazz up your YouTube channel, make it more native to the platform, you need to look at the higher performing YouTube channels and see what they have. What do they have? They have incredible lighting. They have the great cameras. And there's a great post here from a friend of mine named Dan Bennett, who is a strictly video production guy who works with podcasters, works with corporate clients, knows his stuff like the back of his hand. And there's a great LinkedIn post that I pulled up here. And what he posted just fits so perfectly with this prediction, which is he listed out like 5 things. Number 1 was lighting. Natural light doesn't cut it anymore. You need to invest in a 3-point lighting setup and close the curtains. Your face should be creatively lit with no harsh shadows. My lighting isn't perfect, but I'm not a YouTuber. Take that advice though. The lighting is critical. The next and most important thing is the resolution, 1080p minimum. No more 720, no more 480, no 360, 1080 minimum, 4K is preferred. And the reason he says all this, and Jag brought this up offline beforehand, was what inspired him to write this post was he was watching a creator's video on his phone, and then he decided to see how it looked on his TV. And then he realized that YouTube isn't just watched on phones anymore. It's the #1 streaming app on TV screens. So when you're creating your podcast for YouTube, you have to understand that the majority of people are going to be watching this on their television. That may not be the way that you personally consume it. That's the way a lot of people are watching right now. So just remember the numbers, 1080p, 4K. You're going to have to invest in a better camera, unfortunately. The webcam isn't going to cut it anymore.
Jag, I know you've been doing some tweaking, got a new camera, and you moved, and you've been playing around with the studio. And what have you found with your new camera? What's going on over there?
And it's still very much a work in progress. And I actually, to that TV point I was telling you guys offline before we started, I have a 4K camera, and I shot kind of just a dummy quick 5-minute podcast yesterday, and I only put it up on YouTube. I didn't share it everywhere because I wanted to see how it would look on my brand new TV that I got for the move, because I'm a typical guy. And my wife said, I want this and this and this for the house. What do you want? And I said, a big TV to watch football on. That's all I care about is a big TV. So we got a big TV to watch football on. And I said, let me see how this looks. And I said, okay, well, the first thing my wife said is, you got to reposition that microphone. The perspective's wrong. The microphone looks like 8 feet big in front of your face. Okay, well, you can see that in 4K. You can see if I haven't shaved in the morning in 4K. You can see every blemish on my face in 4K. If I had hair, you'd see what was messed up with that. So that's a lot of pressure to put on a podcaster. But at the same time, people are consuming content like that. My wife and I are looking to book a cruise. What did we do? We went on YouTube last night on our TV in the living room and looked at video reviews of a couple different cruise ships we were looking at. What did we click on? We clicked on the 4K ones that showed the pool in stunning detail and the restaurants and everything. So there is something to that. To Johnny's point, I think 1080 is okay for the most part, but we are past we are past the age of 720. 4K might be a bit. There was actually a thread I was commenting on in the Riverside Facebook group today, and that is, do I need to do 1080 4K? 1080 is going to be fine for most talking head videos. If you've got a lot of visual elements, 4K is probably ideal, especially for those watching on those brand spanking new TVs. But 1080 is, I think, really table stakes at this point. I've got a couple clients who have 720 webcams, and I'm on them to get, even if they buy a Logitech Brio for $150 and upgrade to the 1080.
I feel bad for you. Like you bought like a brand new TV to watch just one more football game, and then the Patriot season's over, right?
Hey, it's fighting words right there. We'll see.
Matt is hoping for the rubber match between Dave's and my Patriots and his Bills, for those of you paying attention. So.
Go Bills, as we like to say around here. Nice.
Yeah, for some reason I have a Patriots piggy bank. I forget where I got it. Anyway, Johnny, I like that you gave some little guideposts for people to takeaways from this episode of the Super Friends. One more, and it's a simple one, but I agree that YouTube thumbnails are important. And in the past, it was always like, oh, that's one more thing I got to create and make it look good and everything. It's going to take me like a half hour to an hour on Canva or something. Train ChatGPT to mess around with it until you get a good template. And if you train ChatGPT to be your template for your thumbnails, you just kind of have to punch in the information. I know I'm being vague, but you want an animated thing, you want you punch in a photo and have ChatGPT change it, but it can keep the font the same every time, and so you can be consistent.
Yeah, and I don't want to assume that we have to assume that the people listening to this are like above a certain level of tech savviness. Right. So let's say you don't want to go that route, because like you said earlier, David, maybe some people at a certain point, people get tired of the AI thing. So you may not want to have very obviously AI thumbnails. You can still utilize ChatGPT or Claude or whoever. You just say, hey, I just downloaded Photoshop. Can you teach me step by step how to make a thumbnail for my YouTube video? And it will make it so easy. And, that's what I did. I don't have a background in digital media art, but I can make thumbnails like that just now because you do it over and over and over again. And you're not making crazy different thumbnails every single video, or maybe you are, and it can kind of unlock a new creative outlet for you. But there should be some of your creativity. Your creativity in the podcast is what's drawing people in. So use that in the thumbnail as well to help draw people in right out of the gate.
Go ahead, Catherine.
A shout out for our friend Coco in Riverside will make you. I've actually used that to make some thumbnails, and they're okay. They're better than what I could do on Canva, let's say, and asking to optimize for YouTube. And to Johnny's earlier point, you can use those in the A/B testing. So if you needed just a B, that's a good way to do that.
Yeah, and the global marketplace out there is insane. I've used people from all over Fiverr, Upwork to make thumbnails. There's so many talented people out there that will make that all they do all day is make YouTube thumbnails.
Make thumbnails.
And you can pay them $15, you can pay them $25, you can pay $100. Now, granted, you get what you pay for in most instances, but if you don't want to take the time to do any of this, it's the easiest thing to contract out. And then once you find someone that you like working with, you just get them on WhatsApp, message them, hey, I've got a new episode coming out. I'm gonna send you a job on Fiverr. They go, great, here it is. Boom, you've got your thumbnail. It's one less thing to worry about.
Or pay them directly so Fiverr doesn't take 20%.
Yeah, and we would never do that because we don't want to get banned from those places. I was once banned from Upwork for doing such a thing. And so I would never advocate for something that is very clearly a smart idea.
We're going to move on to a Steve Pratt special here. So Steve Pratt, formerly of Pacific Content, he says the panic around video and AI is going to die down and creativity is going to get dialed up. And I think I heard that in the last two sentences from David, Catherine, and Johnny. You all mentioned that, right? We're all going to agree here?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's to me, it's an epidemic on Facebook, for example. I feel like every other video is fake, and it's not what it purports to be because it's created by AI. So it's the question all of us people are asking every day if we're on social media: is that AI? Is that AI? I think that's AI. So I agree. I certainly hope this prediction proves correct.
I'm going to disagree. I'm going to say that I think the panic is not going to die down because it's change. It's people. It's who moved my cheese, and it's the conspiracy theory that AI is going to take everybody's jobs. Well, it's going to take people's jobs who aren't paying attention. It's the people who are paying attention. They're going to use it to help them in their existing jobs. I know that's a very broad generalization as it's coming out of my mouth, but I think the panic around AI is not going anywhere. I'd love to see the panic go down, and I'd love to see things settle into a bit of a rhythm, but it's so new and so few people understand it that I think this is going to be a conversation we're having for quite a period of time.
Well, Jordan Blair from Buzzsprout, there will be widespread AI-related fatigue on AI slop, even as AI continues to shape production workflows.
That's what I was going to say, is to Jack's point, is general, like I agree with you, Jack, general panic about AI, especially when it comes to job loss, that's not going anywhere. But when it comes to podcasting specifically, when I think bodes so well for creators, especially literal talking head videos, is it's you can't AI that out. You can, but it's going to look like AI slop.
Yeah.
But I think I agree with the sentiment that people are going to crave real, authentic creativity, real, authentic conversations coming from human brains rather than what AI can write up, because what AI creates is just an amalgamation of what the general public thinks, like pluribus. It's just sort of it's the hive mind coming out and spitting out what it thinks you want to hear. And I think the slop in podcasting, the AI slop is already tired, but it's really hard for talking head content to go away.
So we're going to dovetail into this one. This is mine, by the way. 2026 is going to be the year that we stop agonizing over video strategies and start focusing again on the craft of audio.
From your lips.
Do you want to expand on it? Do you want to expand on it, Matt?
Oh, yeah, okay. I think we're going to start to pay attention to the audio we are putting out now. It sort of dovetails into another prediction that I have about where the money is going. The money is going into the audio space, and the video stuff is going to be flat. And that's going to force people to really pay attention to their audio, how it sounds, and making sure that it sounds good. Great, actually.
I'll repeat something I said on an earlier Super Friends episode, and that's that remember the lesson of MTV, where the music industry became so obsessed with creating great music videos that some would say the music suffered. Well, how long did music on MTV last? a few years before the Real World and all the other things they started, and then things shifted back. So I think you're right, Matt. I mean, it's if you're paying attention to how your podcast looks at the expense of spending time on things like finding great guests, developing great new segments, well, then who cares how good it looks? You could, I suppose, you could just have all fashion models on your show, and then it would look great, right?
And what if it's agonizing to listen to your new segment? Yeah. My ears are bleeding because you're screaming into your laptop mic.
Exactly. Case closed.
Okay, I have one here. Oh, this is going to be one that we're going to like to talk about. Podcast host pricing goes up. So for a long time now, we've been paying podcast hosting prices. They've largely stayed the same. Todd Cochran last year, probably at the beginning of 2025, he announced that Blueberry would be raising prices. We lost Todd Cochran, by the way, in 2025, which was a tremendous low point. I think very, very sad moment for the podcasting industry. But to that, he started a trend in which he said that, maybe podcast hosts should be considering raising their prices. And this is a good moment to talk about all the other things that are going up in price.
But the quality is going up with it, right?
You
Before-
would think so.
Before
Is
we
it?
turn into our parents and complain about how things aren't what they used to be, I will say, with more folks offering podcast hosting, Catherine mentioned Substack earlier in the conversation. Riverside is now offering podcast hosting. Spotify's offering it for free. Again, to Johnny's point, you get what you pay for. But I'm optimistic that podcast hosting specifically will stay reasonable because of marketplace competition. As far as everything else going up in price, I mean, that is what it is.
Someone's got Libsyn here. Didn't it go up by $5?
Did it?
I have Libsyn.
I have a couple people on Libsyn.
Yeah, they all went up.
I have them pay for it though. I don't pay for it.
Got it.
I have
Good.
I have a couple of ghost shows from yesteryear that we're still on Libsyn, and this is gonna be the prompting for me to get them off onto something free because I would like them to exist. I might not be working on them anymore, but
Wow.
they can exist,
Libsyn-
but not.
Libsyn
Yes.
Libsyn more than doubled their price. You used to be able to host a podcast there for $5 a month. Minimum now is 12.
Mhm.
Okay.
That's Libsyn. If you're listening, come on, that's absurd. I hope you put out a press release or notified all of your customers because that is bull.
It's
bottom tier hosting at best.
okay. So I'm going to think back to something that Todd said a long time ago, or Rob Greenlee may have mentioned that when 2015, 2016, everybody would complain about the price. And then all these other tools came in, such as Descript. And now that all that's in the like 50s and hundreds of dollars and going up, yet, podcast hosting just sort of sits there and the price is fine. And now nobody complains about the price anymore. It's $12 a month. And what are we paying for Descript? What are we paying for all this other stuff?
Right. Loving counterpoint that some of the podcast hosts took away things that made it easier for podcasts. So for example, using Libsyn as an example, they had legacy sites so that you could have, and I realize it was just bare bones, but you could have a website for your show without doing anything extra, without paying anybody extra or doing anything. You could have a meaningful extension for your podcast. So it could be mypodcastname.libsyn.com or whatever, or they made it easy to connect a URL that you owned. All of that went away pre raising their prices. The site became almost unuseful. So that all of those little small things went away and nothing has taken its place. And now the price is up. So that's my view of the arc of, in particular, Libsyn, not to bash on them, but it does seem like, yes, I realize prices are going up, in the US, our dollar's worth less. I realize all of those things, but I would like things to improve if prices are going up. I would like to feel like I'm getting a comparable service with those things that I'm paying for.
Can I be cynical a little bit?
Please.
Yes,
We
you may.
welcome
Cynical
it.
Matt is my
Why
favorite
is
Matt.
Riverside getting involved in podcast hosting? And I think they're doing it so that it makes it really hard for a podcaster to leave.
Everybody wants to be all
Well,
things
yeah.
to all people.
Be the
Yeah.
everything.
And so people go in and now they're
Sure.
using Riverside and it's okay. I did have Kendall on the Sound Out podcast last week, but there's no third-party enclosure tags. Yes, they have 301 redirects, and if not, we know they're going to get them, but there's no IAB certified metrics as of yet. They've come in, they're doing the bare basics of hosting, and anybody who's new goes, oh, distribute to Spotify, distribute to Apple. Good. And you're kind of going to be stuck there because if they wanted to leave Riverside and let's say go to Descript, now you need to go find a new host, and then you got to go and do a whole bunch of other stuff as well. I think they're just hosting to trap you there. I'd rather Riverside just innovate on the creation side.
Which
That's
they've
what
done a
you
lot of good
do,
stuff
right?
on, per our conversation with Kendall.
What's that?
They've done a lot of good stuff in that regard, per our conversation with Kendall.
Yes, but I don't want you spending time on that work. I want you spending time on my recording. Right? I mean, I know, like I said, that's a very cynical take, but I think you just got into the hosting game just so that make it hard for people to leave.
But I think that's probably correct. I mean, even my main question for Kendall was about what do you want podcasters to know about live streaming? Why are they offering live streaming? And we're sitting here on a different platform. I'm sure that they're not dumb. These companies aren't dumb. They know where they want to compete. They know the services where the podcasters are going to want to go. So yeah, and they want you to stay. I mean, as things are getting improved, a lot of us on this screen, we pay for Descript and we pay for Riverside. So it's going to be like a little competition to see who gets better at the things that are more core to what we do for our clients and who we end up saying goodbye to.
And Kendall did mention that, by the way, which leads to this prediction. Live and interactive podcast formats will edge further into creator tool sets and audience engagement. Okay, so let me ask this question to you people who have clients. Does anybody have a request to go live?
One.
Okay.
And not for every episode, for very specific episodes, specific guests, specific types of content, specifically to access that host's LinkedIn audience, which Riverside offers and is great. So he was paying for StreamYard for the live streaming stuff. And then, we looked into Riverside. We go, well, we're already paying for Riverside. They offer there, we can live stream right to LinkedIn from there. Let's just keep that and kill StreamYard.
I also think that to our original point that we were talking about, doing live streams is if you have the audience and you have a responsive audience, that's a great way to bring in a revenue stream. That there's plenty of podcasters who will go live and take super chats. That's the way that it just becomes a different type of engagement, a different special type of show, and it's a different revenue source than some of the other ways that they're doing it.
I think it does need to be a special occasion, to your point, both of your points, because doing it live every time loses the special appeal of it, and it also takes away from
what we do every month.
But it also takes away like one of the arrows in our quiver as podcast editors, which is I put my clients and their guests at ease at the beginning of the show by saying, don't worry if you mess up. Don't worry if you say and 100 times. I'll take it out. Don't worry if you have a false start or sentence. I'll just start it over and I'll cut it out. It never happened. I think that's one of the appeals of podcasting.
Yeah, it really depends on the type of content you're working on. If there's a lot of compliant, like a lot of stuff I have to work on is really compliant heavy. Numbers are being thrown around, deals are being talked about, things that cannot be said publicly that I don't know. I don't work in those spaces, and it has to be told to me, hey, this stuff we can't have in the released version. And people, exactly like you said, they become a lot more gun shy when they see that live button flashing, and they're speaking on behalf of this really big company that they're on for, and it really changes the dynamic and the quality of a conversation depending on the type of content you're doing.
And live streams that have the potential for messes up, whatever, that is also real. That to our defeating the AI button, that people I think are going to like that, because that you're seeing more of the authentic person that you're engaging with in a podcast.
Yeah, and I don't think you can really rely on your entire audience being available for that live stream either. I think part of what makes podcasting so appealing is that it's in my pocket. It comes out on Tuesday. I listen to it on Friday during my lunch break. That's when I listen to the podcast. And I don't want to have to be able to drop everything at 12:30 because I know that's when my show goes live.
Did you guys know
my show's on?
I have to go watch my stories.
Did you know that Riverside offers webinars? They've got an entire webinar set up. So if you have a client who wants to do a webinar,
interesting,
very interesting. And I'll say why, because I had a client who wanted to do a webinar and I was stuck to go buy Zoom because it was the only thing that really worked for what they wanted to do.
Use promo code David Yaz for 20% off.
But, good on Riverside for going and getting into this spot with webinars, because companies are now buying this product and then saying, oh, well, look what we can do. We can now do our webinars from here too.
The question is it on which plan is it on? How high a tier do you have to go to get to it?
Well, Jag, you had your chance to talk about pricing 10 minutes ago.
What's so unique? What differentiates a quote unquote? I clicked on the webinar button. I clicked on the live stream button. I clicked on the record a podcast button.
Webinar, I have not played with any of this stuff, but
Okay.
I remember I tried to do a webinar with StreamYard, but a lot of it had to do with who could see the attendees.
Okay.
So we wanted to sign up for something, but we didn't want everybody to see who was in the audience. And we wanted to keep
Oh, it's the audience member function rather than just guests and hosts. Yeah, I've done podcasts like that. They work great. They're really awesome. It's almost like a private live stream, even, you know. That's a way that you can think of it in podcasting terms. It's a really nice function.
Cool. This is a Dan Meisner special, and the people at Bumper. Traditional download metric will further decline in importance.
That goes hand in hand with the rise of YouTube.
It does. It really, really does. So how are we going to measure all this?
I don't know if I agree with that, because I mean, you think about any business, like vibes go out the window when money's involved. Like at a
Those are
certain
words
point,
to live by, Johnny. Put that on a sign behind you.
at a certain point, if someone's cutting you a check for your podcast to be the title sponsor of your show, they're gonna want to know a number. Hey, how many effing people listen to this thing? You got a number? Is it a lot? What is a lot? And I think how much people care about it, of, you know, bragging to their friends, will probably go down. But when it comes to getting paid for your show, that's a real thing people care about.
Actually, maybe that prediction probably should have been prefaced with, maybe it's only the people who want to use the download as a you know, to factor in a currency to exchange, you know, ads and money. Maybe the download goes away there. But I think if we're not talking about, you know, ad spend or anything like that, then maybe it's still got value.
Yeah. Well, maybe even to contradict my own point. And if anyone else has anything, please jump in. I feel like I've been just flapping my gums here. To contradict my own point, one of my staples in life is audience quality, not audience quantity. So maybe in lieu of the download metric going down, it's the how much can you tell me about who the audience actually is goes up in levels of importance. So if your audience, you know, if you're selling financial services software and you have 2,000 listeners an episode, but they're all CFOs, that's pretty valuable.
That's great.
Versus 20,000, I don't know. They could be stay-at-home moms. They could be accountants. I have no idea.
I mean, that's like I was looking at my Spotify Wrapped for creators for a couple of my clients today from 2025. And it's like the data that Spotify collects, data is the new currency. You might see that, you know, of your listeners, these are the other shows they listen to. These are the artists they streamed the most on Spotify. There's a lot of data when you dig into it.
Yeah. Your show was streamed 6 months worth, like 6 months of time worth listened of your show. Is just, you know, people love those numbers. The host loves seeing those things. I saw a lot of my clients were just posting them all over social.
Here's one. Advertisers are going to be questioning the value of programmatic more aggressively, and in the end, you can expect more demand for authentic host-read opportunities. Oh,
Interesting.
not only that, we got applause. This, by the way, comes from me, of all people. So I made this prediction.
Does
But
that mean
you're not saying baked in host ad reads?
right?
not
Yeah,
saying
that
that.
was my question.
No, that's fine. But I think just a host-read ad where if somebody goes to buy an ad on your show and they want the host to read it, whether it's baked in or it's inserted dynamically, as long as it flows. I think they're really questioning Verizon ads appearing in the middle of the show and, you know, just ads popping in from really out of nowhere. There's just not a lot of faith in those ones. And the host read ad has just gained in value, it appears.
Yeah. I mean, who's built the trust with the audience? There's
Right.
only one person that's done that. And I think the Verizon ads, what they're going to throw money good after bad because they can. And the audience will look at it just the same way they look at everything else. Like I re-upped my parents' Disney subscription because my kid likes Disney movies, and there's ads in it now, and I don't really want to pay for the ad-free version, so I can handle 90 seconds of ads while I'm watching Toy Story with my kid. But the stuff that's really going to make you pay attention is the host read stuff.
Yeah.
It stands out. It's the old radio model. I mean,
Yeah.
how many Mattress Firm and ZipRecruiter ads are you going to hear until you have something resonate with the person, to Johnny's point, that you've built that relationship with?
And then I think that also falls upon the host too, of who are you going to align yourself with? Because
Right.
there are a lot of podcasters out there who will just take any dollar and dime that comes into their bank account and read any ad. You know, I don't need to hear another ad for ZipRecruiter. I don't care if it's read by the host or not. I'm not hiring anybody right now. So
What about a
It's-
mattress?
I've got one. So the host, I think you as the host have to really be cognizant about, like, is this something that's going to be valuable to the people who listen to this show, or is it a check in my pocket? And if it's a check in your pocket and you want to make money, great, but think about it a sec.
Another one. This one's from James Cridland. He says the podcast industry events are going to continue to pull back or be scaled down with a shift to smaller, more focused events. This is a good thing to talk about because we all like to go to events, and I think we're making plans for 2026. So if you have any, be sure to mention them.
This one seems a bit odd considering the source, considering what Podcast Movement is doing and Cridland's involvement with that. With all due respect to him, he's a titan in our industry, but Podcast Movement is scaling up to reach the ad week in New York in the fall.
But I think it's going to be more targeted and a little bit smaller. It's going to shift.
Okay.
It will shift to New York, but at the same, I mean, we're used to 3,000 and 4,000 people. I don't think we're getting that. We're also, to what Johnny said, it's not about the mass audience. It's going to be about the right
It's
audience.
quality.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, then I stand
Yeah.
corrected. Okay.
And Matt, you made a point when we were talking about it offline too, about the move to New York being very specific to target that area of the country, just because it's so dense, versus, having it in Dallas, you can get people from either coast. In New York, it's going to be a much more focused audience. It's going to be marketing people. It's going to
where
be
the
people
advertisers are.
in the New York tech scene. A lot of podcasters in New York and in the Northeast area, Boston. There's a great one up there, I hear. I think that stands out.
Dave
by
and I
their
are going
move
to be
New
there in
York.
our Red Sox jerseys.
Yeah. By the way, I just want to mention that I think that even though the podcast movement group that does own 50% of Pod News editorially, it's quite separate.
Sure.
So yeah. So James is going to say it regardless of, he
No, and I'm not
qualifies that
saying
every
he's
time,
influenced
so.
by the role there. I'm just saying that I read that wrong, Matt, when you first put it on the screen, because I took it as Podcast Movement getting too big for small creators, but I think you're right in that it's niching down in terms of who they're targeting. So I stand corrected.
Yeah. But
I
go ahead, Catherine.
Good. I was going to say, this actually, I think this statement right here is actually spelling out an opportunity. I do not think we're going to see this in 2026. I think this is speaking to an opportunity for the future, that there are going to be able to be smaller regional events that are more addressed to immediate needs of creators, of podcasters. There is an opportunity baked into this statement here. I don't think we're going to see it fulfilled. I don't think Podcast Movement is going to fulfill this. I think this is a bellwether of things changing going forward. And people who want to have events or want to have meetups that are, remember, Podcast Movement grew out of a podcaster meetup. I think that we're going to see a lot more potential in those types of events, those smaller events. Yeah.
It's strange because I'm considering more events than ever before. So I take a look. Oh, there's Podfest coming up shortly. Oh, and there's this thing called in Calgary. I think it's
Roundup.
Podfest.
Podcast
Yeah.
Roundup.
Yeah, I can't remember. YYC. I think it's Podfest
Yeah.
YYC. I'm gonna get that wrong anyways. Podmeet YYC. Shit, I can't remember the name. Anyhow, that's another one that's there. So I look at that event. Podcast Movement's one. Oh, the London Podcast Show, which is really big and a definite recommend. So I'm looking at more shows than ever, but I'm also looking at a lot of smaller shows as well.
Podcast in London, that is on my 2027 radar, Matt, based on your recommendation and others.
I know.
And I'll
I feel
say,
so
I
much
know
pressure
that-
to go.
Yeah. Save your pennies, but use David's piggy bank there. I personally, I'm looking for a, let's say, content conference, and I have not landed on one. I feel very strongly about, I think that there's plenty of industries in the content space where there is transferable information for the podcaster. And so I have not landed on where I'm going to go, but that's where I'm looking. I'm looking for people who understand content, who understand delivering media on lots of different platforms, and I want that transferable skill to the podcaster. That's what I'm interested in for an event for me personally.
Pod Summit YYC was what I was trying to say.
Yeah.
Oops. Sorry. Anybody else have any podcast related events that maybe it doesn't have to be podcasting? Are there other events that you would go to that are not involved, that are not really podcast? Maybe it's a social media thing. Maybe it's something that's maybe a creator. Is there another type of conference out there that sort of lends itself into what we do?
I'm not really a conference person, but I really loved what Catherine said about a creator conference. I think that we may, for the podcast host specifically listening to this, I think that we may pigeonhole ourselves a little bit with like, oh, I can only go to Podcast Movement, I can only go to Podfest. That's where I'm going to learn everything. The word podcast is becoming synonymous with just content. With it's blending into
That's
video. Right. We're getting on YouTube. We're all just kind of competing in this space for attention now, and you don't have to just go to those places. They're great to go to. You don't have to just go there because there's so much other stuff that you can learn, whether it's YouTube strategy, and Podcast Movement has, I believe the last time I went there, they had a YouTube strategy session, but there's got to be conferences out there that are dedicated to just solely one thing that you think you need to get better at, whether it's your marketing strategy, whether it's just making great reels or making great clips, or YouTube or Facebook, whatever it is. Broaden your search beyond it. It doesn't have to have the word podcast in it for it to be valuable to you.
Okay, I'm glad you mentioned that because I still had this one kicking about here. And this one came from Stephen Goldstein from Amplify Media. I'm not even sure there's a prediction. He just sort of says this is where podcasting is at, and that the industry narrative will continue to blend audio with new screens and hybrid experiences. And he calls it liquid content. I put it in the comments field of every one of our social media streams, whether you liked it or not.
Did he expand on that more, what liquid content means?
It's a little of everything. So I'll give you a great example, actually, because we already touched on it. What is wrong, Jag?
I really wish you'd phrase that differently.
Liquid content?
I had Taco Bell this afternoon.
Excellent.
Sorry, Catherine.
We talk
I'm
about
12. What do you expect?
we talk about so much about about our show being here and there and everywhere. The funny thing is, like, YouTube is involved with everything. It takes away from TV, it takes away from podcasting. YouTube really sort of blends itself in there, and so that feels fairly liquid, right?
Yeah, I think it's just a continuation of the thing that we talk about almost every episode, is just be everywhere. Every platform that you could be available has its strengths, so try to tailor your podcast to those strengths, or pieces of your podcast marketing to the strengths of that place. And yeah, you want to be in the pond of the internet.
A simple example of what that concept, I started noticing it on when I would look at YouTube, that then suddenly there would be these community posts out of nowhere, and it was image screenshots of tweets now on the post section of different creators' YouTube channels. And I was like, oh, okay. So the message went out that you just take your tweets, you put them on your YouTube. Now they are a post on YouTube, and they go out that way. So yeah. So I'm not sure, to not completely to Jag's point, the coining of that term liquid content. I don't know how that's going to be received, but I get it, and I've seen it already in action.
Based on Jag's lunch, clearly not well.
Yes. Well, great. Now we're going to lose our Taco Bell sponsor, you guys. Come on, get heads in the game.
People can see this on the screen anyways, but for those who are just listening to us, Steve Goldstein says that era one of podcasting was the Me and the Undies era. That's when we all did the podcast in our underwear. Era 2 was the spaghetti against the wall era where we all, tried stuff. And then Era 3, which we're just coming out of now, which is what is a podcast. We had the audio versus video where we've been struggling for the last few years. And Era 4 is what Steve is welcoming in now. This is the liquid content era where it all goes anywhere. Link is in the show notes if you would like to read what Steve has written. Steve is always gives me a lot to pause and think about. So
Thoughtful.
Steve, if you're listening, I'm sorry for my comment. You are a brilliant mind in this industry, and I read your newsletter every week and have a world of respect for you. I just have the brain of a 12-year-old.
Everyone's on fire. This is what happens when we take time off, right? Like Johnny's invigorated. He's just going here today.
He's ready.
Jag's back on 95 XXX in Burlington, Vermont with the morning show bits.
With the crew jokes, yeah.
Dave showed up and he's all firing with the Boston accent. Got the top 10 time machine mentioned in early.
Yes, I did. Matt, may I make one bonus prediction?
Sure. Well, I'm going to go around here. We're going to wrap up here, and everyone's going to throw us in their prediction. So this is a good time for you, David, to give yours.
Okay, I'll start. My prediction for 2026 is that there will be some pop culture crossover with podcasts. If you saw the Sabrina Carpenter episode of Saturday Night Live in October, they did a sketch spoofing the McFoodie Boys, which I don't listen to that podcast, but it, apparently, according to my son, it was a spot-on spoof. But there still hasn't been the great podcast TV show, and I just think it's coming, and it will do its part to elevate, or maybe even a podcast movie. I'm reminded the TV show The Office had an episode which featured a video iPod in comical fashion, but that helped the video iPod, and the video iPod helped The Office. And in like manner, I think there's going to be some kind of crossover thing.
Dave, there had to be some Lifetime movie where a small town podcaster meets farmer's daughter.
Yeah,
this past Christmas.
What's the?
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to look it up here.
Well, I'd be curious with
Oh,
Jag and Matt really quick. Do you guys think that Frasier was a boon to the radio industry?
No, I think WKRP in Cincinnati was.
I'd agree with that, even though it was before my time.
I don't know anybody who got into radio because of Frasier Crane. I do know a lot who got in because of Johnny Fever.
I love
That's
Frasier.
fair. That is fair.
I think part of me getting into podcasting was that I loved Frasier as a kid. It's a great show.
Wow.
There you go. I went to law school because of LA Law.
Oh,
Wow. I'm sorry. So, recommendation: Vengeance 2022. BJ Novak had a podcast centric movie. I recommend it. But I did have to look up the title again.
does
It was
anybody
such
else
a
have
hit.
any predictions? No, good.
No.
Well, welcome to 2026, everyone.
Wait, I do have one prediction. Can I throw it out? And Matt, again, this is favoring you. I think there's going to be a rebellion, an absolute rebellion against AI voices in podcasting. Video clips, sure. Art, sure. That's fine. Writing our show notes, great. Creating our timestamps, sometimes. But the AI voices, that is not going to fly. There's going to be people who try it. It's going to flop. 2026, that's going down, baby.
Here.
We can kiss our 11 Labs sponsorship goodbye.
We will say goodbye one at a time, and we will start in Detroit.
John Gay, Jag Podcast Productions, now located in Berkeley, Michigan, but serving clients all over the world. Find me at jagpodcastproductions.com.
David Yaz, Boston Podcast Network, pod617.com. Go Pats.
Catherine O'Brien, Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Kicking off today, the Mardi Gras season. How's that?
Oh.
Yeah. Epiphanies
and
today.
here I am without my beads.
Enjoy that king cake,
Carnival
Catherine.
season starting today. Yeah. And
Enjoy the
it's been
king
my
cake.
pleasure. Yeah. Come see me on Twitter. Hello, Catherine O.
Thank you, everybody, for listening. Please subscribe and follow the show wherever you listen to your podcasts. We appreciate it.
All right, I'm Matt Kundle from the Sound Off Media Company, now located in Saint Adele, Quebec.
Thanks for watching the podcast Super Friends. For more Super Friend wisdom, check out the show at soundoff.network. Produced and distributed by the Sound Off Media Company.